Hello, everyone. Welcome and thanks for tuning in to this Your Overseas Home webinar on Spain's Golden Visa. Golden Visas are a type of residency by investment scheme offered by various European countries to provide non-EU citizens, and usually their families as well, a painless and flexible route to a new life in Europe. Typical requirements include investing in either property or a minimum value, or qualifying fixed income and financial products or local enterprise. My name is Richard Way. I'm a member of the Your Overseas Home content team, and I'm hosting this session. It's great to have you all with us, whether you're watching live or catching up on demand with the recorded version. You could say this is quite a timely session. Spain has offered its Golden Visa since 2013. It's been a popular one as well. But the current government is making headway with plans to scrap it. So time really could be of the essence when we're considering applying for the Spanish Golden Visa. You're going to get all the facts here today, and that's thanks to our specialist speaker, the person who will be providing us with all the valuable information. That is Robin Thornton from International Financial Services provider Holborn Assets. Robin is an experienced financial advisor whose day-to-day work is helping expats with cross-border wealth management, taxation, and golden visas. Welcome, Robin. You can hear us all right?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. It sounds like a good CV. Can you just print that out and send it to me?
Well, it's recorded, so you can go back and send it to everyone. This is a quick guide to the format of today's session. We've got about 30 minutes. We can go over a bit, that doesn't matter. And we're going to start with a presentation from Robin, and then we welcome questions from you, our audience. I've got a few questions as well, which I might throw into the mix. To ask a question, please use the questions tool, which you should see on your dashboard. You just type it in there, and then I'll field the questions to Robin. Needless to say, having Robin available is a great opportunity today. He's given up his time, especially what is happening in Spain at the moment. We've just been talking, and he's very busy at the moment. So do make use of it. Okay, Robin, floor is yours. Do you want to just tell us a bit about yourself, your experience, and Holborn Assets, and then go straight into your presentation?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that, Richard. A little bit about Holborn Assets first and Holborn Pass. So Holborn Assets is a global wealth management company. We've got about 20,000 clients globally, 19 offices pretty much all over the world, from obviously Spain, Portugal, etc. in Europe to the Middle East, Cyprus, Hong Kong, South Africa, Vietnam, and we've got an arm in the US as well. We also have a division of our business called Holborn Pass, which really helps people with global mobility solutions. So ever since COVID and or coronavirus, whichever it was called, has exacerbated that. You know, the war in Ukraine, the struggles in the Middle East. You know, lots of people are looking for Plan B. At the moment, a lot of American clients are looking for Plan B because of the elections. UK clients because of the taxes. It kind of goes on endlessly. So, and I'm a partner on both of those companies. I'm based here in Europe, and pretty much help anybody that's looking for a kind of a new life, whether it be cross-border tax planning, investment advice, visas, etc. And obviously, the Spanish Golden Visa is quite close to my heart. So without further ado, let me just run through the kind of agenda for today. As Richard said, we've got about 30 minutes, so I'm not going to kind of hanging around too much, but any questions that you want to fire at me. So really, why Spain? I guess you're watching this webinar because you're interested in Spain, so you should probably know most of that. A little bit about the Golden Visa in terms of the background, a little bit of an explainer. That's really the most important piece, I think, for people to understand what's going on. The current investment options, commercial options, and I've done a little kind of comparison v Portugal, to give you a benchmark of the different types of schemes. And of course, the important thing is if you want to do this, you need to act now. Okay, so first of all, why Spain? I'm a bit biased, so apologies for that. Great place to live, great quality of life. This is a picture actually I took with my phone Estepona. It's relatively cheap. It's relatively peaceful. You know, the low crime rates, good healthcare system. It's a great place to live and explore. Lots of culture, lots of history. That's if you get away from the kind of beaches and the holiday areas, I guess. It's meant to be quite warm and dry. You might have seen on the news recently it's not been, but generally, you know, the weather and the climate is really nice. It's certainly not ever below zero, that's for sure. We had some rain a couple of weeks ago, but in fairness, we've been in drought conditions for nearly 2 years. Okay, so a little bit about the Golden Visa. As Richard alluded to there, it has been going for some time. Lots of European countries have got similar programs, raised a lot of money in terms of foreign direct investment, and pretty much any non-EU citizen can apply. There's a few differences to Portugal, and I'll come on obviously those at the end, but there's actually no need to visit Spain either. It's a bit of a strange one, except to, you know, do your biometrics, which is for your residency card. Obviously gives you access to all Schengen countries, and you can work, retire, or live in Spain if you want. And there's no minimum or maximum period of time for that, but of course you've got tax implications if you go over 183 days, and that was the subject of another webinar that we did. Unusually so, it's quite quick. Yeah, Spain's not renowned for its, how should we say, efficiency, but this is highly efficient, very quick processing. I think it's like 95% of it is done online. There's no waiting periods at the moment, etc. It's very cost effective. And if you're from an ex-Spanish colony, and there is a long list, Cuba, Dominica, Mexico, Philippines, etc., you can actually get a route to citizenship within just 2 years. So if you come and live in Spain, within 2 years, you can then apply for citizenship. For the rest of us, it's 10 years. Okay, so what is actually going on? There's probably lots of noise out there. I guess everybody on this call has, you know, Googled what's happening with the Spanish visa. So the current situation is that on the 14th of November, Spain's Congress, so just to explain, Spain has got a system of upper and lower house, very similar to the US, where we've got the Congress and the Senate. So the Congress approved what's called the organic law. Now that is the law which has got the kind of golden visa stuff inside it. So it's a lot of other things as well. But basically, the PSOE, which is one of the major political parties here, has basically suggested that there should be an amendment to the organic law, and that would eliminate the golden visa program. And that's been passed by Congress. It's now gone on to the Senate. Now, the Senate has to approve it, but they can also block it, which is unlikely. They're more likely to kind of maybe propose some amendments to it. We don't know where we stand with that just yet. The kind of likeliest scenario is that there may be some suggested modifications, and it may delay the cancellation of it a month. Now, for example, they may allow the commercial option to continue, or they may, you know, bring in a new option, which is investing in infrastructure or social housing or something like that. We've seen something very similar to that happen in different countries around Europe. So what happens now? Well, I've put that in big capitals. The time to act is now. It's literally the last call. So the Senate is controlled by the Popular Party, the PP. Now they brought this legislation in, you know, over 10 years ago, so they're kind of quite fond of it in the nicest possible way. And obviously, you know, going back to what I said before, they can pretty much do whatever they want in the Senate. PSOE want it closed, and there's got to be some kind of compromise, which there's usually a compromise in Spain, because the political parties there's quite a lot of them, and they have to work together to govern. Now, what's likely to happen is the Gazette. So the Gazette is the official newspaper, shall we say. It's not a newspaper, but where they publish the laws of the land. It's likely that we'll get a 3-month notice period from the 15th of December. So as you can see, time to act now. Now, the investment options, let's run through those so everybody's clear. You can still buy commercial real estate, residential real estate. You spend 500,000 euros and kind of allow 8 to 10% for purchase costs, taxes and lawyers' fees. You've got commercial real estate at 500,000 euros, bank deposits at 1 million, and share capital at 1 million as well. You can also, if you wish, buy government bonds. I never quite understood this, why it's more expensive to buy a government bond than it is, deposit money in a bank. But hey, now you've got to maintain all of these to keep your residency. You do get a grace period, shall we call it. So if you were, switching from one asset to another, there is a grace period. But bear in mind, they're talking about ditching it completely. So that won't be an option in the future. So we have 2 commercial options here I want to show you. And I'll run through this. It'll give you a flavor of what you can do now. Now, the reason I'm showing you commercial options is I don't think, and it's my personal opinion, that there's enough time left to go the residential route, because if you're starting now, you'll want to come to Spain, you'll want to view some properties. They've got to be key ready. It can't be a new build. They've got to have the right title deed. You've got to do your searches. The lawyers are going to get involved, etc. I just don't think there's enough time to do that, and it puts too much pressure on people, quite frankly. So the commercial options, however, are quicker to process. They're less likely as well to be cancelled or played around with in the future, because it does genuinely create incoming investment funds into the country. So it's still going to be 500,000 real estate value, but the capital required on this one is only 381, and that is because the developer prepays the rental on the property. So they take a property, the client would take a property, for example, in Madrid or Barcelona, the 2 main, economic hubs. The developer would say, okay, thank you very much. You've paid for it. Now we're going to give you 150,000 back, and we'll look after it. And that's it. You don't have anything else to do with it. You've got an exit strategy after 5 years if you need it. But obviously, going back to what I said before, you need to maintain the commercial investment to keep your residency visa. Key to this one, it's all inclusive. So the 381 includes all your fees and taxes and everything else. There's no hidden or surprise, purchase fees whatsoever. But like I said before, it's based in Madrid and Barcelona, and a reputable developer up there. If clients want a better return, you can spend more. It sounds a bit of an oxymoron, but it's not just 500,000. It's not just 381 that the capital required. So if people want better returns, there are better investments out there with higher returns on a bespoke nature. Now, this gives you a bit of a flavour of it. It's only 2 pages, but you imagine nice. This is a bread shop, for want of a better description, in Madrid. Small size units, anything from 60 to 100 square meters. Client comes along and says, okay, yeah, I want my golden visa. Basically pays the 350,000. The developer tops that up with another 150. So you've hit that 500,000 limit. So therefore, application can go in for your residence permit. Quick processing, it says 60 days there. Actually, it's a bit less than that at the moment as well. Okay. Exit periods. Now, this is for now, because at the moment you can still exit under the current regime, and maybe you wanted to buy something else or buy a nice property to live in. But like I say, that is all coming to an end. So although you can exit here, you're going to have to maintain an investment. So basically, you're locking away well, you're locking away €350,000 to maintain that residency. But then you're going to get an income from it, income generation after year 10, because don't forget, you've already been paid 150,000 up front. So you've got 10 years at 15,000 a year. After the 10 years, you're then a proper commercial landlord. So you've got an income coming in. There's another option as well. So a slightly different option, but of a similar nature. So this is a hotel complex, a big developer in Madrid. They've done loads of these. Basically, they raise capital to build hotels from overseas investors. Now they pay the VAT, which is quite high. So it's 10% on new builds in Spain. Again, it's still got to be that €500,000 limit. And this one is a call for 60 investors, 30 million in total. Do the maths. The total capital required on this one, slightly more, just because there's a couple of extra costs in there, but it's 392,000. I've done that for a family of 2, okay? And we can provide quotes and illustrations for whatever size family you've got, which will show you the timeline of the payments and the costs involved. Again, prepayment of rental. This one's structured slightly differently. There is a withholding tax which is deducted, which is €28,000. So that's why the numbers are all slightly different. Again, buyback guarantee. This one's after 10 years, but again, you need to maintain it to keep your residency. So again, it's a kind of a long-term investment, but then you get a commercial return after that 10-year period as well. And again, no surprises. So these are some of the pictures. These are some of their finished developments, Soho House down there. And they've done about 15 of these hotel developments. So, blue chip provider. Okay, so quick comparison. Spain v Portugal. We're not talking football here. Okay, so Spain at the moment, I know I've said it probably 6 or 7 times now, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but 500,000 minimum investment, and you can do residential if you like super quick and you want to buy something this week or next week. I think you'd probably just get away with it, but you've got that time and investment risk. Commercial options, cheaper. Obviously you can't live in them, it's an investment, but inclusive of all the kind of taxes and everything else. So it's almost €200,000 different. By doing the commercial option, you can decide later if you want to buy in Spain, you want to rent, where you want to live. Personally, I'd moved 2 or 3 times in Spain before I found the right property. And in terms of renewal fees, it's relatively cheap, €400 after 3 years. So that's for your TIE. And this is quite an important one, I think. There's no need to visit Spain, so there's kind of no cost of flying the family here, or necessarily being forced to come to Spain, although it's a beautiful country and I'd encourage you to do so. Again, Schengen travel, quick processing. Portugal. Okay, so here's Portugal. Similar kind of numbers, 500,000, but again, there's commercial options, but big delays at the moment. But don't get me wrong, I advise on Portugal. Portugal Golden Visa is more of a path which you can take, which goes to citizenship, so you can get a second passport. But the delays are coming down. AIMA have announced all kinds of incentives to reduce the delays. Like I said, route to passport as well, no residential options, and pretty much similar kind of approach where it's a 500,000 investment, but you've been repaid some of your income in advance. And so it's basically 400,000. So it's quite close. One of the big differences here is that visitation. So you've got to do 5 weeks in 5 years. So maybe, if you're living in the US or you're in Asia somewhere, that could be quite a considerable chunk of change. Same Schengen travel as well. Okay, I'm sure you've got questions. Richard, do you want to pick up on any of those? These, just to explain this slide, QR code if you want to scan a free meeting with me. I do a 30 minutes consultation for free. My contact details on the bottom, my WhatsApp number as well. And Richard, over to you. Throw something at me.
Okay, I will. Before we go into the questions for the audience, I just want to ask who are your typical clients? Because we're talking about how some people like the fact you don't have to visit the country every year. So they're kind of there's a particular lifestyle that it suits.
Yeah.
I mean, you might.
Well, that's always that's probably the most difficult question I've had in a long time, is what is a typical client? Because it's a lot of US nationals, a lot of Brits since Brexit. This is for Spain, should I say, because they're looking for, to avoid the 90-day rule, for example, and they want a bit more freedom around that. So that's really been, I guess, the core markets. But then also anybody from those connecting countries, Philippines, Cuba, Mexico. So there's quite a big Filipino community because of the language is obviously the same. And they can go towards citizenship as well. So that's actually quite a big area as well. But quite frankly, there's not a typical client. Everybody's bespoke, and that's why it's so important to understand their needs and objectives, what they're trying to achieve, as opposed to just putting it into Google, where's the best place to stay in Europe.
Yeah, and most people, their long-term goal is permanent residency or citizenship. Is that what most people want?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So again, with both programs, I was there comparing Portugal, but in Spain, as long as you maintain that investment, that's you kind of done and dusted, so to speak. With Portugal, it's slightly different. You then get the option of PR, so permanent residency after 5 years. Once you've been a tax resident in Spain for 5 years, you can also apply for permanent residency. So there's a few different routes. All that means is that, frankly, you don't have to renew anything anymore, as long as you're in country. You can't, with those types of permanent residencies, there's usually a caveat that says, look, you can't leave for 2 years and go live in the US and then come back and expect you still to have permanent residency in Spain. So there are one or two caveats.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Let's go into some questions. I'm going to work through them chronologically as they came in. I think you've answered this actually. Chris Lunn, why now? He says this is the timing thing to do with the government phasing it out, really, isn't it? I mean, realistically, What are we talking about? So anyone who's got an application lodged now, that's fine if it's in the system.
Yeah,
is that right?
Absolutely. Basically, lawyers submit online. Bingo. The key to it is the title deed. So the key to, if you're buying residential, if you've got a title deed, and also if you bought previously, what I haven't mentioned is if you bought any time between now going back to 2013, as long as it was more than 500,000, and that's what's on the title deed, you can actually retrospectively apply. But as long as you've got that code, that's it, job done.
So people today listening, realistically, you might not be able to answer this until the Gazette's published, I guess, but when are we thinking about they need to have their application lodged and the necessary proof of investment?
Yeah, and well, really, the next 3 months. The earliest time the Gazette will be published is 15th of December, so we're talking 15th of March. But absolutely bear in mind, it takes a little bit of time to submit things, etc. I mean, I really think this side of Christmas is the last call, because we've also got, obviously, the holidays. We've also got Three Kings, which is the Spanish Christmas, shall we say, which is another shutdown for the best part of a week. So if I put my money on it, if anybody's interested in this, need to, get a move on.
Yeah. Okay, good advice. Thank you. I'm going to jump to this question because you just touched on the case where someone might have already purchased a property. And we've got Anthony who says he's already invested 200,000 euros in a property. Is there a commercial investment option to take this into account So could you spend 300,000, invest
Yeah,
300,000 euros?
you can. Yeah,
without the
you
rent?
can.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you, as long as you're above the 500,000, that qualifies you for the visa. You know, in terms of, and there are options within the commercial space. The only reason we kind of tag it at 350,000 is because it's if a client's coming to us for the first time to do that commercial option. But yeah, absolutely. As long as the title deed value of the two bits of real estate added together are more than 500,000, you're good to go.
And you have to have purchased it after when? Do you say 2013?
After 2013. Yeah, so 10 years ago, as long as it's within the last 10 years, yeah.
Okay. He also asked about the tax situation. Same chap. He's from the UK. He's looking at a golden visa or digital nomad visa, but he's just wants to know where he'd stand in terms of tax if he spends more than 180 days in Spain. He's also concerned about wealth tax because he's a property investor with assets in the UK.
Yeah,
so
well, that's
a one-on-one chat.
Yeah, that's probably a one-on-one, but a quick kind of summary of that is once you spend more than 183 days in any country, with a few other caveats, you're a tax resident. There are wealth taxes in Spain. It's a big headline, but not many people pay them because of the way that they're structured. So wealth tax in Andalusia at the moment has been abolished, and we've now got the solidarity tax, which was imposed by the federal government, but that's 3 million euros per person. And there's ways of mitigating that. That's called the 2060 rule. So you can't be charged more than a certain percentage of your regular income. Most people with high net worth will be living off capital and other forms. So there's ways around it to mitigate it, to get that to a, how should we say, a manageable level.
Okay. Thank you. Another question: the golden visa, is it relevant? Can you use it in Lanzarote?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's another Spanish region, isn't it? The Canaries, like anywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Yeah. So you could, do the commercial option and, just pitch up in Lanzarote and rent a nice, apartment on the beach or whatever. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Another one here. 2 questions. Do you need to leave the investment in Spain? So I'm thinking about probably the example you've just given, the commercial property one, or at some time can we get the money back? Well, it would need to be there for the duration of the application, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. That's where we stand at the moment. Now, the kind of unknown, shall we say, is that people that are holding these types of investments and residential. I have friends that have bought residential properties and got their golden visas. What happens after, for example, 5 or 10 years? Is there can you switch that to another type of visa? So my gut feeling is the authorities will allow you to do that. I don't see any negative to it. So if people want to come and live here permanently, you would just then look at, for example, a non-lucrative visa, or somebody there mentioned a nomad visa. So there's other routes then to maintaining that if necessary. If you actually physically want to become a tax resident in Spain. Okay,
thank you. The same person is asking about what are the actual ID documentation required. I think this person is concerned. They're saying that it's a birth certificate or a passport, because some countries birth certificates aren't accepted.
Sorry, Richard, you're breaking up a wee bit there. Did you say what ID is required?
And acceptable, yes. Yeah, from the applicant.
Yeah, so it's actually it's quite simple and unusually again so for Spain, but it's usual passport, proof of address. We do a criminal record check, as obviously the authorities do on the client as well, and all the money for the investment needs to come from their personal, or should I say, an account in their name. Unusually so, we're digressing a wee bit here. In Spain, actually, you can invest via a limited company, but you need to be the beneficial owner of that limited company, and then you obviously have got to provide the documentation to prove that as well.
Okay. A few questions about tax here. There's one here asking about the difference between commercial and residential. So if you invest in a commercial option rather than a residential, are there any tax benefits to that being a commercial property rather than residential? I guess capital gains in the future or anything like that?
Yeah, again, it depends on what happens in the future. One thing to bear in mind is that residential property even your main residence is subject to capital gains in Spain at rates varying from 19 through to 24%. So assume it's 24%. Whereas a commercial option, the kind of taxes and things that are involved are a bit lower, but again, it depends on what you're going to do at the end of the 10 years. So if you then sell that into the open market, that commercial option, yes, you'll have capital gains tax to pay, but because they're in Madrid taxes are a lot lower. It's funny that that's where government is, that's where all institutions are, but the Madrid autonomous region taxes are a lot lower. So it will be less than, for example, a residential property in Marbella.
Okay. And still on tax, there's a question here about the timing of selling your UK property. From Gerard, he says if he was going to buy a residential property in Spain now for the golden visa route, if he hasn't sold his property in the UK, I'm guessing his primary residence currently in the UK, before completing the purchase of his Spanish property, I'm guessing then sells the UK property, which means his UK properties become a second home, I guess. If he's become a resident in Spain.
Yeah,
is he then
it's that's not a big drama, because don't forget, if you're doing the golden visa route, you're not a tax resident. You're still a tax resident in the UK. So the key to that, and I think you and I did a webinar on that for Portugal recently. We were talking about pros and cons and what you should do before you leave and what you should do once you get to the country. It's very similar. So if you're selling your main residence in the UK, you sell it before you leave the UK as a tax resident, because your main residence is exempt from capital gains tax. So that's the key to it, because if not, you'll get hit with, 24% now in the UK. And if you're moving to a country with a higher CGT level, like Portugal, you'll then pay a little bit more on top. I mean, Spain, quite frankly, is the same as the UK in terms of capital gains tax.
But I think you just touched on an important point as well. We haven't said the difference between the tax residency and legal residency, because there is a difference. So you can have your golden visa and have the residency status in that country, but you can still be tax resident somewhere else.
Absolutely. So it's a kind of a plan B. That's what I see people coming to me for, is being able to live and work, retire, study, do anything you want in Spain, and not become a tax resident. So you don't spend more than 183 days here. There is another test as well, which is economic and cultural ties, but generally speaking, it's 183 days. But you could still be a tax resident in the US, UK, Dubai, wherever you are, as long as that is where you're registered for tax. Even in Dubai, there's not any, I know, but that is still your tax residence, and you spend the majority of your time there. And importantly, it's the center of your economic and cultural activities. So you can't leave your family in Spain and the kids are at school and claim that you're a tax resident in Dubai just because you spend 6 months of the year there, because that is one of the things that will fail on the tax residency test.
Okay, thank you. Another question: is your spouse included in the golden visa? Who can you bring along with the golden visa?
Yeah, Okay, it's a good question that as well. I'll tell you one of the failings that a lot of people have done with residential property in the past. So they've bought it in joint names. Sounds sensible to do, but not if you're applying for a golden visa, because you need to have invested 500,000 on the application. If two of you buy it together, you've only done 250. So you buy it in a single. Your property would be, and a commercial property as well, would be in a single applicant's name. You can add any spouse, civil partner, etc. to that. Children. Now, children, we generally say that they need to be under the age of 21, but for Spain, there's actually no legal age limit in the application or in law. But the general opinion is that, well, it's more than an opinion. They must be in full-time education. They must be dependent on their parents. So they might be at university, wherever, but as long as the bank of mum and dad is paying for them. And generally speaking, they need to be under the age of 25, but it is done on a case-by-case basis. What we say is, it's you're probably looking at the age of 21 as a maximum. You can also bring your parents on the same visa as well. Over the age of 65, you can put those on the residency visa. And again, you don't have to prove dependency over the age of 65.
Okay, well, that's useful then for large families and people who want to bring everyone with them.
Yeah.
I think I know the answer to this. You mentioned Lanzarote. The same investment requirements are in Lanzarote, but someone's asked about Tenerife. So what's the minimum investment in property in Tenerife? It's the same, 500,000 euros.
Yeah, it's the same. I mean, there are some tax breaks for the islands, generally speaking. So it needs to be done on a kind of individual basis. That's more based around lower income tax rates. I mean, even things like you get a break on your airline travel, you don't pay the airport fee or something like that. I think it is different. So there are one or two benefits to living on the islands, just really because they're trying to encourage people to live there.
I think VAT's lower as well, wasn't it? The Canary Islands, VAT, and some of the.
Yeah, I can't remember. Each autonomous region's got slightly different, but yeah, things are different rates, shall we say? Yeah, I mean, the VAT thing in Spain is a bit of a nightmare to get your head around, because there are so many different rates as well. From when you go to a bar or a restaurant, it's 10%, and if you buy a car, it's 21%. If you do something else, it's your energy bills, it's is it 2.5% now or 5%? So that's a bit of a minefield in itself.
Okay, right, we're over time, but that's fine. We've had great questions. Before we sign off, Robin, can you just tell us, someone here today, they want to use you, they want to act now and apply for a golden visa. What can they expect? What is the next process? What are the steps in the process now? So they would make contact with you today.
So obviously, they can book a meeting with me, scan the QR code on there, or drop me an email or a WhatsApp on the number. The process really is to get documents in order. So it's pretty straightforward things to start with. We'll send out the client a number of documents to sign, basically a service agreement of what we're doing for the client. Simultaneously, the provider will be giving them documents as well in Madrid or Barcelona, for example. So that's if it's a new investment and they're looking, because we need to push that through. I mean, we have got time on the commercial side, and also they have guarantees. If it doesn't happen for whatever reason, you basically get 100% of your money back. So that's a positive. If it's an existing investment, if somebody's already got a property over 500,000, again, get in contact with us, and I'll just refer you to a really good law firm who can do the processing for you quite quickly. If you've already bought a residential property, it's you've got plenty of time. If I'm honest, that should be absolutely no problem at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We are well over time. So thank you very much to our audience for tuning in. I hope it's been useful. That's whether you're watching it live or on a recorded version. As Robin said, his contact details are there. Do get in touch with Holborn Assets or get in touch via Your Overseas Home if you've got other questions or you need contact details again. Don't sit on your hands here. Time is important, as Robin said. So get those applications in and start talking to Robin. Thank you very much, Robin. Really appreciate you giving up some time this afternoon.
That's a pleasure.
And sharing all that useful knowledge. A small request from us here at Your Overseas Home. If you found this webinar useful, we'd really appreciate it if you'd leave us a review on the review website Trustpilot. Otherwise, that's it from me and Robin. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the evening and good luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Good night.
Thank you.